Welcome everyone to our BYO-CSS webinar. We're excited to have you all. I see some familiar names on the list here, which is great, and some newcomers as well. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll get going. My name is Heather Horner. I'm the COO here at Form.IO. I'm hosting this webinar in conjunction with Brendan Bond, the lead architect at Form.IO, and Aaron Eaton, our senior apps developer, who I also refer to as the resident race car driver. We have a lot of brilliant minds building the platform, and they're more the mechanics, and Aaron is the one that drives it and sees how it goes. And we're excited to have him leading the demo today. Before we get into that, for a refresher for all of our familiar names and faces, and for anyone new here, I want to just go briefly into what is Form.IO. Form.IO is an enterprise data collection and management platform for humans, and now, of course, agents and systems. With a common form JSON, which defines workflows and processes, it serves three different avenues. Forms for humans in UI through our renderer. Our APIs allow for systematic automation. And now with Form.IO UAG agents as well. That, however, is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the CX, UX, UI layer. And it's important, right? So the entry point of every application is a UI for the human side of things. And I know there's enough AI content out there, and I'm sure we'll shove some at you soon here as well, but we're excited to talk about the white labeling and styling of applications using Form.IO today. Your brand and your experience and your forms are all important as the front door into those systems and applications. And we're excited about our new release of the style map and what that's all about and how much easier it's going to be. Even though I know a lot of you are doing it already, very excited about it. So, what are we going to be doing today in this webinar? Brendan is going to explain a little bit of why we rebuilt this and where his thought process was while creating this new system. Aaron will be showing a live demo to show off the goods, and then we will go through a little bit of best practices and the boring details that are probably the most important ones, and then we'll open up for Q&A for any questions at the end. Couple of rules for engagement. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Brendan and I will be answering them along the way. Anything technical, he'll take. Anything less so, I'll take. And then any interesting or long-winded ones we'll save for the end. So if you don't get an answer right away, please just stay tuned to the end. Please keep it on topic. We are happy to hear anything else from you. That avenue would be support@form.io, and we're happy to answer any questions that don't have to do with this topic there. Also, I'm going to be launching a couple of polls along the way. I would love your participation. Your feedback is very important to us and it shapes what we do. With that, I will hand it over to Brendan.
Sure, thanks, Heather. Yeah, we're here today to talk about really the sort of entry point into many of your applications, which is the form layer and how they look and feel in your applications. So talk a little bit about how it's done today. As you may know, Form.IO, the renderer ships with these Bootstrap-based styles. Bootstrap, of course, being a widely known and used CSS framework. And that's been the default for a long time. We have no plans to change that as the default. But what that means for various of our enterprise customers and also our open source users, it means it's been a challenge to adopt their design systems to that reality. So you kind of have three choices today to adopt a design system or to kind of to sort of adopt Bootstrap to your design system. Those being like one is like ad hoc targeting of CSS selectors at runtime. Attractive, but very brittle, not very maintainable, as DOM markup may change and things like that. The second is using Bootstrap's theming APIs to basically override Bootstrap to sort of approximate your design system. That's a little bit more maintainable because it's a first class API that comes from Bootstrap, but it's also not as desirable. And then the third option, of course, is use our templating system, which is what many of our customers do. But that's a large surface area. It requires writing DOM markup. It requires understanding some sort of internal or like advanced Form.IO.js concepts. Uh, and so all three of these options are good, and many of you may use these options, but we wanted to offer sort of an intermediate option that doesn't require writing a full template system, but also doesn't require sort of this ad hoc overriding of CSS. And what we've come up with is what Aaron's calling the style map, which is, I call the standard template. It's got all sorts of names, but the idea is that we provide you a meaningful set of default DOM markup in your templates that's class and CSS agnostic. And then you provide a JavaScript or a JSON object that styles each constituent element in that map. And if this sounds very technical, it kind of is. So hopefully when Aaron talks about it, it'll be a lot less kind of in the weeds. But the idea is that you don't have to mess with the underlying DOM structure of elements because that's not what people really need most of the time. What people need most of the time is to just style those constituent elements in the way that they want so that it matches their design system. And so what we've come up with is meaningful default DOM markup that you don't have to touch, that you can inject styles into at runtime. And that's on a global basis for all your forms and resources, or that could be on a per form basis for forms that need to look a certain way just in their one when they're embedded in one place, which is pretty powerful. And that's something you can't do today. The idea of like a per form style update. So excited about the changes that Aaron's going to talk about. Of course, I'll be here in the chat to answer any technical questions. Um, and yeah, I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'm going to launch my first poll about what you are currently doing. I'd love to have you participate in that, please. We'll see how that runs. And next up, we're going to go into the live demo. So I'm going to hand it over to Aaron. Aaron, I'll give you the screen and take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Heather and Brendan. All right. So on in my browser over on the right side of the screen, I have a form set up for employee expense report. Some pretty standard fields, name, email, expense date, type, amount, etc. And I am embedding this form in a Next.js application. Uh, and with that, I'm using the React Form.IO library to actually embed that form. Um, so fairly simple. We can take a look at the application here. We have, sorry about that. Remove that. All right. I'll log in, demo at Form.io. In, and we have an expense here. And this is the expense form that we created in the developer portal. And it has all the default Bootstrap styles, and it doesn't quite match uh, the rest of the look and feel of the rest of the application. And so let's bring in let's change this up. So let's bring in the Form.io JavaScript library. And then, sorry, I don't know why keeps popping up on the poll, but all right. And we're also introducing a new library called Standard Template. And within the Standard Template, we'll be offering a couple of different tools, but the one we're talking about here today is the style map. And within the Form.io ecosystem on the front end, if a lot of times when you're using a module, you need to actually tell the Form.io JavaScript SDK that, hey, you need to actually make use of this. So we do that by typing form.io.use. and we'll do standard template. And standard template is a function that takes in a couple of different arguments. The first one is the name of our theme or framework, and this can be anything we want. My custom theme. And the second argument is a JavaScript object. And for now, we're going to leave this empty. And this represents the style map. I'll save that. And now we have a mostly unstyled form. And we can take a look at the DOM if we wanted to. And we can see that our classes are actually undefined. And so this is a blank slate from which we can start to build our theme out. So back in the style map, we want to start targeting some of the form components here. And each component has a standard structure. So we target the form component. In this case, let's start with inputs. And then within that is the display type. In this case, it's form. There are others, but that's a topic for another day. And within each component, we can target specific pieces of the component. In this case, input is very simple. We can only target input. And here's where we can start bringing in the CSS classes that already exist in our application. For this application, I'm actually using Tailwind. I know it's very widely used, easy to use, and the utility classes really allow you to do any kind of styling you want. So for my components here, I want it full width. Let's bring in a couple more. Border, we want it rounded with a nice big radius. And let's make the border color our actual border color. So we can use the CSS variables that already exist in our application as well. I'm going to save this and we'll see what happens. So we're already beginning to see how our inputs are taking shape with just a few lines of code. I'm going to bring in a few more classes just to speed things along. And with all of our Tailwind classes here, we have fully styled inputs, text inputs, nice focus ring and things like that. And this is really all it takes. Let's see what it looks like with some other components. So label. And this is the same structure, form. And you see as I'm typing, we're actually getting some hints here. The style map and the entire standard template library are fully typed. So it's really easy to get started and know exactly what you need to target. And for label, let's say font bold. And we already have bold labels. And for the sake of time, I'm going to bring in some other style map components. We have button, and then a few more. So button, panel, checkbox component. And with a few lines of code, we have our fully formed or fully styled form components.
Right. And Aaron, I'm going to jump in here and say one of
Yeah.
the advantages of this, if we could go back to where you're actually this is just JSON, right?
Yeah.
So this could live on a database as a view. This could be in a version control that you fetch from a third-party API that you control. This could be anything. It's just JSON. It could be a form, in fact, a Form.IO form that actually configures these classes. So
Mhm.
the idea is that this intermediate representation of styles without markup can be anywhere because it's just JSON. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you. Okay, so we built a quick theme from scratch, and now what if you're already overriding the Form.IO CSS classes? How can we migrate to style map? And we it's extremely simple here. I'm going to reset all these changes real quick, and I have some custom styles already in this file here. Import those. And okay, so we're really back where we ended the last demo, except all of this styling was done by targeting the existing classes and other DOM markup that already existed by default in the Form.io embed. And we're going to bring in the standard template again. Excuse me. Okay, there we go. Now, I don't want to rewrite all of this stuff into a style map. It'll take a while, right? But what we can do instead is, you know, change this to, or add a CSS class here as a selector for my O input. And I'm not going to change the structure of this either. So for my O input is nested within for my O form. We can actually go back to our style map and target web form, which is the wrapper around the entire form itself. And then input. Save that, and hopefully we've brought in our input styles that already existed in our style sheets. So it's a really quick way to get migrated. So I'm going to stop my share. Heather, you mind bringing up the slides again?
Yep, will do.
I didn't know that. That's a pretty cool trick.
Race car driver.
Yeah, it's all just classes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool.
I like the meta example where you're using Form.io to define everything. You're like, it could even be a form. We like to get really meta around here, so that was my favorite.
Yeah.
All right.
So a couple of other topics to kind of get your minds going on how you can make use of this. As Brendan said, these are just plain JavaScript objects. So every function that JavaScript provides for manipulating objects, arrays, and strings, you can use here in your style maps or your themes. So you can conditionally load these style maps per tenant. You can do partial overrides. So say you have some default styles that apply to all your forms, but you have a tenant that has very specific colors. You could just bring in the individual styles for say a button color, and that tenant would have a custom theme just all for themselves. Um, and another before I end, this wouldn't be a tech webinar without mentioning AI. So Heather, if you want to go to the next slide, AI assisted theme creation. So I mentioned a little bit before that the standard template library and style maps are fully typed, and this is great for AI development because your agent can have full context of how to use a library, and this can work with any kind of AI coding tool. And when Brendan set me loose on this library, I was doing a lot of different tests, and one of them was kind of what we did in the second demo where I had existing overrides. And I told Claude Code, said, hey, here's the standard template library. Here's how to use style maps. And here are all my overrides. I want you to convert it to style map. And it did it in one shot. I didn't have to interact with it at all. And it did a complete migration for me. So if you're looking at this and thinking, oh man, adopting this is going to take a while, we're not talking about a weeks long migration. This is something that can happen in an afternoon or a day or at most. So I'm really excited to get this in your hands and see what all of you can create with it.
Yeah, with that, I think I'm going to launch my next poll. Here we've got, so next steps. And what are you most interested in exploring next as it pertains to this topic? And I'll give everybody just a minute to share their answers with that. I love these polls. I'm so into them. That's the product in me, I guess. Uh, I really like having the feedback from you guys. I appreciate it. Just seeing where everyone's at. Because we serve our customers in high compliance industries where we're pretty out of scope. We don't have telemetry data that we collect, and we don't have any of that, which is great because we wouldn't be in the environments that we are without that or with that stuff included. But it leaves us sometimes wanting more information and feedback and meaningful feedback loops with our customers and prospects of what they're up to and what they're building. And I hear the coolest stuff all the time. So anytime you guys ever want to share that with us, it's very helpful. All right, looks like we got some answers in. Give it a couple more seconds and I'll close that out.
I did want to add something, Heather, that I
Yeah.
that I just realized that I should talk about just very briefly, which is that the standard template and the style maps um, further our commitment to open source. These are going to be open source libraries that are available to make requests and make changes, and just like many of our other um, libraries. So
Yeah, definitely. That I think also too, what I'm looking forward to is like the contribution to some of the open source stuff in this arena of, I'm open to where that goes. And if there's room for providing, starter kits or templates or whatever that is for different frameworks, that could be plopped in there, I think it'd be really cool. It is open source, so the world is our oyster, for the type of contribution, that we can get from that. So if I go through, the key takeaways for style map and let's see, there we go. Get these polls out of here. Here we go. Style map. And style map, by the way, is what we're calling the thing that you use to map the styles over to your forms. The standard template, I might pull you guys in for one more sort of sidebar. The reason it's called standard template is it has a little bit more to do than just the styling. This is a little bit probably of a preview for a next topic, but Aaron or Brendan, would you want to tell a little bit about like the word template, what that means? And like the standard template has more to do, it also has to do with the HTML and the actual structure there. Could you speak to that a little bit?
sure, in terms of what a template is, and when we talk about it in Form.IO terms.
Yeah, because it was like I was struggling, I think, from the communication and wording part of it, like how do I want to voice this, right? Of like we're talking about the styling, we're talking about like the white labeling of the experience and making sure that it really matches your brand and that it's easy to do, right? But the standard template as a repository and as a concept overall is more than that, right? It's more than just the CSS, and there are opportunities with the HTML structures, for example, or the templates and whatnot. If you could speak to that a little bit, I think it'd be cool.
Sure, and that's something that's ongoing, is trying to tighten up these APIs and things. But I'll speak briefly that a Form.io template is a collection of DOM markup with styles or without, that then the renderer goes ahead and renders as part of the form rendering process. If you think about templates as a collection of DOM and style, then the standard template sort of tackles the first part of it for you. The DOM is taken care of for you because we assume that you really don't need to mess with the underlying DOM markup structure. You just want to style them. That being said, as part of this effort to implement the standard template, we've made a lot of effort, and this kind of has to do with the question that I see in the Q&A, is we've made a lot of strides in actually changing the underlying DOM markup a lot easier. So this is a lot more technical and a lot more advanced if you want to go a couple steps further. But the idea is if you do need to go and rewrite a template from scratch, and that means like modifying DOM markup of the components, maybe having JavaScript-based behaviors, think things like floating labels or anything like that, then you will need to go and modify the underlying DOM structure, because something like Material UI is going to expect a certain DOM structure to enable its JavaScript-based behavior like floating labels. And so we've made a lot of strides to make that easier to do in Form.IO, to go and write new DOM structures easily. For example, you could start with the standard template, as maybe Heather, you're kind of getting at, is you could start with the standard template, see what we think the meaningful defaults are, and then make changes. And so that's implemented today. It's certainly not. It's certainly probably not finalized, that underlying API yet, but I think it will be very soon. But definitely coming down the pipe in terms of making it easier to be very advanced and to have very granular control over the DOM structure of your form components if you need that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we did have this one question in here I want to get to, and I want to encourage anyone with some questions that you want to have answered, put them in the Q&A now. We did get some in the chat during the webinar. When this is released officially, it's coming out soon. We'll be announcing that. Of course, it's dependent on QA and getting everything out because we love software and you guys all know how that is. But it's coming out very soon, and we will have a sort of playground where you can explore it. That's will be emailed out to you when ready, and then also the documentation and the GitHub repository will be open source. So those will be available here shortly. We did have this one question about making Material UI work. I don't know if that was answered in there. I think maybe that was answered in your words, but if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
Sure. I mean, the answer is yes. It really depends on how you want to get it. Now, in terms of your example, it uses React JSX to change the background color on hover. That's entirely possible using what we've already demonstrated. You don't have to change any DOM markup for that. You can just use Tailwind or whatever, or Material UI if you have a bucket of classes. I actually haven't checked in on Material UI in a long time. I know they've made some changes. It might be worth us. Someone asked about starter kits, and I think that's a really good candidate for like a starter kit, that and Tailwind, of just having like an example small subset of components, kind of our opinion on what they might look like. But in terms of your question, Jesse, yes, that's entirely possible using what we've already demonstrated. If you wanted to get more granular, and you mentioned you do need that, right? Then absolutely. And maybe if not very soon, I know we're in touch with you guys on our support channel, so we can talk about the ways you could probably implement that today, as soon as this version is released. So we'll certainly be in touch if you need more granular control than that. But, so I'll answer that. And then Brian Anderson asks, and this will just be included within the JS SDK at Form.IO.js. Right. This is just a client-side specific enhancement, let's say, feature enhancement.
Perfect. And then I think I have one more poll just to close out, and this is the opportunity to, if you have a specific question about this or about anything, this would be your chance to also to get in there and tell me what you want to hear about. Tell me if you want to be contacted and give us an email address. So if you've got something that you're after, just let us know and we will reach out to you with more information. We can schedule a call, whatever's best for you. We're always here for you to have that communication. I know we have a lot of current customers. We always want people upgrading to the latest version. If that's relevant and you want to talk about it, or that path is unclear for any reason, we'd love to talk about that. We also have some new features coming out with UAG, with our enabling agentic processes in the runtime with the same JSON as a form with some special features there. That repository is on GitHub already. You can go check it out. We have our new digital signature offering, which is very exciting, which is a web-first approach to digital signature workflows. So it's not document-based. It's within the web workflows that you're already designing within your forms. And then Enterprise Form Builder module, which is embedded form building experiences. So we've heard a lot of feedback about people wanting to scale software, not services. So it allows your customers to come and self-serve and build their own forms, and then that's connected to your enterprise platform. So you could see them in the portal if you want. You can stylize and customize the builder itself, so it's very tailored to the use case, whatever that might be. And so all these things are new and out there, and we'd love to talk to you about them. And we're looking forward to those discussions. All right. Well,
I
race
think I
car
screwed
driver.
up. I had a question that I wanted to answer live.
Yeah, do it.
Question is, we use the Enterprise Form Builder module, and we use Tailwind CSS on the app. Our customers can build forms. Currently, this works by embedding the form builder in an iframe to render it on the page. I'm presuming that you render it in an iframe just to leverage Shadow DOM. In other words, just to leverage the idea that we want to encapsulate the Form.IO builder from the surrounding Tailwind CSS so things don't collide. So the answer is yes, this will absolutely help. You'll probably, ideally, you'd no longer have to embed the form builder in an iframe to kind of to achieve that kind of encapsulation. The idea is that your forms can leverage this standard template. One caveat there is that one of the efforts that is underway is to extend this to the builder. It is extended to the builder today. It just, I think we want to make some tweaks to how those APIs work. But the answer, broadly speaking, is yes. This will absolutely affect the Enterprise Form Builder product and how it's embedded in your applications.
Perfect.
Joel says, how does this play with the PDF server rendering? The PDF server rendering is leverages Form.IO.js under the hood. So as long as that PDF server has access to the styles that it needs, then it's the same process because the renderer renders, and then we have a generator that actually generates a PDF from that regular old rendered form. So I think that's all the questions.
Excellent. So that is a wrap. A race car driver, we sped through the live demo. We gave 45 minutes for this, but we're wrapping it and we're happy that everybody was here to join us today. Thank you so much for your time and participation in our webinar. This will be hosted on YouTube eventually when it converts, and we'll send it out to you for anyone you want to share it with. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day.